Dethroning Your Inner Critic podcast. I am speaking today with Dr. Alessandra Wall, who is an expert in human psychology and motivation. And she rejects the status quo and knows that you can be both wildly successful and deeply fulfilled. She works with exceptional executive women in high stakes industry defining organizations to be the elite leaders and happy humans that they dreamed of becoming. Welcome to the show.
I'm very excited for our conversation.
Me too. Me too. Okay, so let's just start off. I'd love to just hear about how you got involved in the coaching that you do.
Sure. I started my career as a clinical psychologist, spent a long time doing that. And it was just actually, you and I were talking before this, reviewing another interview I'd done. And in the interview, I said I was in a very, I'm a very privileged person because when I fell out of career A, I had the opportunity and the means to slow down and think about what career B would be like.
Yes.
And like most people making major career shifts, it wasn't about reinventing the wheel. It was about looking at what I love doing, that I excel at, that brought me joy, and how to do that in a new space. And being a psychologist, I'd lost that. I had the skill set that I loved.
Yes.
But the application of the skill set wasn't enjoyable for me anymore. And I spent a lot of time, I iterated. So for most people, we only see the end product, and the end product is I have this company and it's very successful and I do work I love. But there were 4.5 years there where I did work that I thought I would love, and I burnt myself out and was miserable and didn't make any money.
Oh, interesting.
So I had to take 6 months off and ask myself really again, what does right for me look like? And the more you ask yourself that question, the better you are at answering it. So the first time I asked it, I kind of got it. I'm like, well, not this. A little bit like the way I chose my wedding ring. I'm like, I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want that. What do you want? I'm not sure, but I know I don't want these things.
Yes.
So moving from avoidance choices to understanding actually what brought me joy, what would allow me to be successful.
Yes.
And then building a business around that. And what brought me the most joy was working with women who were hungry for more, hungry for impact, hungry for change, who felt stuck. And that was very similar to my career as a psychologist. I was just having this conversation the other day with somebody else who said, I feel bad saying that the best part of my job is working with somebody who's hopeless, but getting them to a place where they finally see hope. And I'm like, no, I get that. That's what I loved about being a psychologist.
Yes.
And as a coach, that's often the same process in a different context. So working with people who think the system is a certain way, things are the way they are, the price of success is misery, the price of success is burnout, there is no other way to function. And proving to them, because they don't buy it just because I say it, that it doesn't have to be that way, and teaching them how to take risks that pay off.
This is you and I speak very much the same language. Okay, so let's talk about this for a moment, because you said, right, and you talk about being both wildly successful and deeply fulfilled. And those things, a lot of people are afraid that those things don't go hand in hand, right? So let's start with deep fulfillment. What's your definition of deep fulfillment?
It's relative. Like my definition of deep fulfillment is to be able to do the work that I enjoy, work that I'm one of those people who cries, like when I get emotional, whether it's positive emotion or negative emotions. To do work that on a regular basis, when I think about it, I get teary. work that I
Yeah.
get so giddy that my inner ADD, like kid who sometimes goes overboard, comes out.
Yeah.
Deep fulfillment also means I have the time and the space to breathe. I'm a social introvert.
Yeah.
I do really like people, but they tax me.
Yeah.
And it drives my family nuts, but I love doing nothing. So to be deeply fulfilled, I need the space to do nothing.
Mm.
I need the space to read. I
Yeah.
need the time. I have a close network of incredible women who are friends of mine. I call them my golden girls.
Mm.
Need time to spend with them. My kids are 13 and 15. I do not define myself as a mom, but it is one of the parts of my life, and I do need time. They're just getting fun as human beings.
Yes.
Right. So they were charming and so cute and they were wonderful as small children, but they're fun as human beings now.
Oh, it's so
So
great.
for me, fulfillment is I am one of those people who I took a 4-day weekend uh, and rented a cabin in Idlewild, which is a small mountain range here in Southern California. And I wanted to spend a full day just working. That's fulfilling to me,
Yeah.
working uninterrupted.
Yes.
But I have another client for whom fulfillment is having the breathing room at the end of the day to go back home, to spend time with her husband and her golden doodle, to bake, to travel with her parents who are
Mm.
elderly.
Mm.
And that's that sense of fulfillment. And I know I've been talking about fulfillment outside of work, but when I talk about deeply fulfilled, it's also within the context of coming into work and doing stuff that is again aligned with what you love doing and excel at, and is
Yeah.
aligned with the kind of impact you want to make.
Yes. That's huge. Yep.
And I find that a lot of women don't have that, right? I talk about being miserably successful. I know a lot of miserably successful people
Yes.
who are like at the top of their game, whatever
Yes.
that is, whether it's C-suite or founder or VP or director, I don't care.
Yes.
They're the top professionally of where they want to be. And
Yes.
on paper, their careers look fabulous,
Yep.
but they're not necessarily doing the work they want to do.
Yeah.
Or they have a seat at the table, but no real voice. And the whole idea of having a seat at the table was actually to create impact, to make a difference. And they can't do it. Or they've built a brand around work that they excel at, but makes them miserable.
Mm.
The one everybody talks about is you've killed yourself in your career and you're killing it in your career, but your life outside is completely devoid of joy or space or breathing room.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And that to me, just going beyond fulfillment, I think we've got to redefine what a successful life is.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because we've gotten a lot of messages from our culture about what success is. And so people look at, money and position and right and not enough at the things that really do create fulfillment like you're talking about. So what had you decide, you were a clinical psychologist for how many years before you
By the time I formally closed my practice in
Yeah.
2022, so at
Mm-hmm.
that point, I don't know, actively with the PhD and the license, probably 17 years.
Yeah. So can you tell us about that? What led to this shift for you?
Shift.
Yeah.
Um, I decided I wanted to be a therapist when I was a little girl,
Mm-hmm.
13, 14,
Mm-hmm.
and I never considered anything else once that decision was made. So I
Mm-hmm.
went into college, into graduate school, into my postdoc, and into my career with blinders. And I really just made the assumption that the job would sustain me. And something to know about me is I'm the kind of employee who's terrible once she gets fully, like, fully masters something.
Mm-hmm.
I used to wait tables, super fun, social, interactive. Once I had that down, terrible employee. When I was a research assistant, the beginning, really, really interesting learning about things. Once I can do it and it's rote and I don't need to think,
Yeah.
terrible employee.
Right.
I thought that working with humans meant that my that every day would be a new puzzle. I'm an avid puzzle solver. But the truth is, humans don't have 1,000 different issues. They have 4 or 5 different issues across a 1,000 different contexts, but it's the same. Humans are humans. We're fundamentally more similar than we are dissimilar.
That's right.
So that was one issue, is that every day kind of felt like the same thing. The other issue is my inner adolescent hates how regulated the world of psychology is.
Oh, I totally agree. Yes.
So please, 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 to all the people who are trying to regulate coaching, you don't know what you're doing. You're going to limit your ability to work with people who you want to work with. You're going to limit your ability to do the work the way you want to. It's going to become formulaic. You're going to start worrying about getting sued all the time and losing your license. Don't go there.
That's we are kindred spirits here. We have a very similar path.
I could work with people in the state of California, or I could pay to play and get licensed in other states,
right?
And then have to deal with all the regulations of other states. I had to deal with the regulations of insurance companies. I had to deal with the APA's the theories about what it meant to be a good psychologist. I couldn't barter with people who wanted to barter. I couldn't have relationships that had depth beyond the patient therapist. And I understand that there might have been a context for some of these rules, but when they're applied without any thinking, without nuance, it's ridiculous.
Absolutely.
So that was another piece. And I tell this story often. Actually, there's a video on my website about it. But when I started as a therapist, I would walk into work singing. I mean, I felt so lucky. I felt like a kid going to Disneyland every single day. And then I stopped feeling that way. And I was young for my career. No 30-year-olds aren't going to think this. 20-year-olds aren't going to think this either. But in your 30s, there's this so much pressure to make it or to have it already made professionally. I think that's our inner 20-year-olds telling us we're old, so we should have it. But I was 33 and I looked at my career. I'm like, I have another 30 to 40 years and I cannot walk into work not loving what I'm doing. And that was the impetus. I'm like, I have to do something else. I've never thought of anything else. I have a client right now going through that. Who's in the world of finance. I've worked with her on and off for years. And every time I've worked with her, it's because she's changing companies, trying to find the right fit. And we had this aha moment the other day. And I said, I don't think you're meant to do this work in finance. I think, first of all, the company you're in right now is a terrible cultural fit for her. But I said, I have watched you over the last 4 to 5 years, probably even a little longer, on and off, as I say, go from company to company, trying to find the magic sauce, the magic equation. I understand this is what you train for. It's what your family does. She's even really good at it. But you hate it. She's panicked because she's never considered anything else.
Right. What I call that is being on autopilot, right? Sort of being asleep and not knowing that you're asleep. Right. And so for so long, operating on top of kind of shoving that inner knowing down, right? Putting the blinders on and just keep going. And I think, what's very similar about your story and my story, and maybe, this client's story too, is that the pain pushes you to a point where then the vision has to pull you to something else. It's like you get to a point where you just can't sustain what you're doing. Right? Because it starts to bleed into every aspect of your life.
The danger, of course, is if you let the pain mount to that level, is operating reactively. That's what I described with my first foray into coaching. To me, the reason I chose coaching, other than the fact that it is the occupation of choice for people going through midlife crisis, was that I realized how challenging it was for me with my whole background. I mean, a PhD, an advanced degree in human psychology and in insight.
Right.
to define what brought me joy and what I needed. And I'm like, if this is hard for me, how difficult must it be for people who don't know the framework, the questions, the way the human brain works, and all of that? So I started off trying to build a life coaching business because I didn't, you know what it was? I didn't want to do corporate coaching because I associated it with being very stale and very stuffy.
Yes.
And that's not what I wanted.
Right.
But that initial coaching practice I built was reactive. I was trying to escape, avoid, run away from my last career and the model I had built. So I just built everything in opposition. So the same thing with this client. As we're talking, first of all, I think I threw her for a curveball because we jumped on a call and she was hoping I was going to reassure her about this company. And instead I threw this bomb at her, said, I don't think this is right for you. She messaged me later saying that really threw me off. Now my anxiety's through the roof, and I get it.
Yes.
Coaching isn't about making you feel better. It's about holding a mirror so that you can realize what is and what isn't in alignment. And it's about having somebody by your side who's going to help you navigate those difficult questions and honor what your potential is, right? That is what coaching is about. So some days you're going to hate your coach.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there was a moment where she's like, I hate Alessandra. I can't believe she did this to me. Why didn't she just make me feel better?
Right.
Dr. Wall might have made her feel better. That's not my job as a coach.
Yes, yes, yes.
So I'm trying to slow her down now and say, okay, we figured this out. You don't need to have the answers.
Right.
And you don't need to have all the set up a plan right away, because you can't set up a plan without the answers. Not having certainty and not being able to set up a plan right now is jacking up her anxiety. But if I can get her just to slow down, we'll start finding some of the answers, and we'll start with a very rough plan. And then we'll iterate based on the data and the feedback we get from, exercising that plan. But it is, I mean, I told her, I said, I get it. I remember how scary it was. It took me 1.5 years to say out loud, to admit out loud that I didn't want to be a therapist anymore.
Right, right. So you're talking about building a muscle of sitting in the complete unknown.
Yep.
And so, of course, we've got this primitive brain that wants certainty and predictability and control. So, of course, it is possibly one of the most uncomfortable places to be.
Yeah.
To be able to look and sit and really speak your truth, be in your authentic truth, and be able to clearly say, I no longer want this, and I don't yet have clarity to know what I want. So you sat in that place of uncertainty for 1.5 years.
Yep.
And what I love about that, okay, and I think this is so important for people that are listening, is that without being able to really exercise that muscle, develop that muscle to sit in that uncertainty, you wouldn't have the level of profound fulfillment now. Right? Because we all we want to do when we're in that level of discomfort is, let me find the answer. Let me figure this out right now so that I can alleviate that discomfort. And doing the opposite is actually what has us step into really who we're meant to be and the life that we're meant to be living.
I agree. And what's wild to me is that most people don't expect that to happen multiple times in their life, let alone even just once, right? Like most people just don't expect it. But we evolve throughout our whole life. Who I was at 18 or 13 when I decided that this was my career is very different than who I was by the time I was 26, and there I was out of my postdoc, out like I was up. It's very different than who I was at even 33. Or who I am today. Every year solidifies. I have another client also in finance. It's not just finance, but she happens also to be in finance, and she's been ridiculously successful, a 25, 30-year career plus, extremely successful. And she's not happy. She's really unhappy in her current role. This is not all my clients. Many of my clients they love what they do. They want to just continue operating at the highest levels. They want to like make sure they're thinking the right way, like mindset, actions, all of that's alignment. You and I were talking about this earlier. That's the concept of an executive coach operating like a high level athletic coach, right? You work with people who are at the top of their game and you allow them to continue leveraging all that potential.
Yes.
But this other person also happens to be at a crossroads, and she's tried tweaking things, but she's thrown herself into burnout that's led to the need for a medical leave.
Yeah.
And it's not her.
Right.
Well, it is in part her. It's mostly, however, the big banks that she works within and the expectations these big banks have. They don't care. They just want you to work. The expectations are unreasonable.
Yes.
The culture is unreasonable.
Yes.
When you pair that with somebody who's used to functioning at an extremely high level, and is driven to take care of others and meet the needs of others, that is a recipe for repeated burnout. So she was very clear. She had to take a medical leave of absence at the end of last year. She's like, I'm not doing this again. She was going to leave her company, decided to stay. She got a promotion, and then she found herself back in these same patterns. So we looked at it again, and we came to this point where it's like, I know you've done this for 25 or 30 years. I don't think you can find what you're looking for in this career path anymore. So she is clear she needs to leave, but very scared.
Yeah. Terrified. It's terrifying.
And not able to take her past success and use that as a foundation to trust that no matter what she tries next, she will be equally successful. So high success, low fulfillment for her because she's exhausted, she's unhappy, she'll wake up and cry, doesn't want to go into work. That's never the way she's been.
Right.
Has this incredible mission of empowering women, especially making them more financially literate and helping women get wealthier. Can't really exercise that mission through her current role.
Right.
I'm telling you right now, this woman would be successful at anything she put her mind to. And whatever she wants to do next, she will have people championing her. Right. And yet, so scared to take that step. So she has to sit in that in between as well.
Right.
I know this doesn't work. I know I need to head somewhere else. I'm not 100% sure of what that looks like. Right. Therefore, I don't feel comfortable taking action yet. I'm in distress. But I need to stay put in order to make better decisions.
Yes. And that's at the point where I think it's so important that we not listen to that automatic mind that gets louder when we're in that state of unknown and extreme discomfort. Why does it get louder? Because its sole job is to protect us. So it's looking where's the shoe going to drop? Where's the rug going to be pulled out from under us? And, if we mistake that voice for ourselves and we listen to it and we listen to its guidance, that's why so many women will stay in jobs that deep down are unfulfilling. And, at best, their lives are fine. Their career is fine. And I'm curious what your opinion is as to why so many women find themselves here, where we'll just, right? If we're asleep, if we're sleepwalking, why it's okay to just live this life where we're just doing the same thing over and over again, even if we're not fulfilled.
Well, I won't speak for all women, but I'll speak for a few categories of women. I think there's one category of women who are good girls. We have grown up to do the responsible thing, to be the responsible person. This isn't responsible, right? To just blow up what you've been doing because you're not that happy, because you don't have it all, because you don't have work-life balance or whatever it is. We're told it's so frivolous, right?
Yes.
If we do that, it might mean having to shift our lifestyle just a little bit while we figure things out. And that would mean depriving people in our family from their trips, their classes, their vacations, their certainty. It means taking up space. So I think that's one category. There's another category, which is I am seeing more and more that people believe that the price of success is misery.
Oh, yes.
So this idea of burnout, which I tell people when I started as a psychologist, my area of specialty, I started as a child psychologist, but after I had my own children, I just moved back to working with adults. And my area of specialty in both cases was anxiety and stress. And then what we would now call burnout. But at the time, didn't have that. We've got extreme anxiety, like way back in the day, we would call that a nervous breakdown of some kind. The concept of burnout is so ubiquitous that people just come to accept that, of course, we're going to burn out. That, of course, statement, so many problems with it.
Yes.
So we're told if you're unhappy at work, well, it just is like you can't have it all. You have to try it, but you can't have it all.
Yeah.
I think we're also all too busy reacting. If you're working, even if you're only working 8 or 9 hours a day, but then you're going home and you have your whole household counting on you, whoever that household is, whether it's a single pet, a life partner, a family, or parents or friends, everybody's counting on you.
Yeah.
There's just no time to slow down.
Yes.
And until you slow down, you were talking about that fight or flight response, right? When we get until you slow down, you can't realize exactly where you are. If you ever had one of those days, like let's just say Thanksgiving break or something, you're moving, and you got it. And suddenly you make the mistake of sitting down.
Yeah.
And then you sit down, you're like, oh my goodness.
Oh God, I can't move. Yeah. Right.
I can't get up. I shouldn't have sat down.
Right.
We need that. We need to sit down in the middle of our Thanksgiving Day preparations. And we need to do that equivalent in our careers. And when we do, suddenly we can realize, oh, I'm really tired actually. Or, I hate going to work. Or how did I end up always being asked to do X when I really don't like X?
Yes.
But now it's what I'm known for. We can slow down. We can't get in touch with that. And the only time we realize that there's a problem is when we're put on medical leave for burnout.
Wow. Wow. So let's just go back to this client that works for the banks.
The big banks?
Yes. Okay. So here's a corporate culture that, maybe they might even say, listen, I've given keynotes for some big banks, right? They say, they're all into, work-life balance, but I mean, let's be honest, but, at the end of the day, it's the bottom dollar, right? So, how do you help clients to set those boundaries, to say no, to be able to take care of themselves in the way that you're describing?
There are a couple things. From a really pragmatic, strategic perspective, one of the first tools or strategies I teach my clients to do is that slowing down piece. And I have a process that's called the art of nothing, and I'll share it with you so you have a link you can share. Right. Which is literally, I came up with this in 2013, 2014, when I was running my practice, raising my kids who at the time were toddlers and preschoolers, and then trying to build my first coaching business. And I could not slow down.
Yeah.
And I was running myself ragged, and I was working 60, 80-hour work weeks and just, right. And I had to learn how to sit and do nothing, and I couldn't. But I knew as a psychologist that I needed to create that space.
Yes.
The first thing, I teach them how to slow down long enough so that they can start doing those internal check-ins, so that they can start becoming more aware of where they're at, how they're feeling, and when these feelings come up. The second piece, so that's a quote unquote easy piece because it's very strategic and tactical.
Yes.
The second piece, which is a little deeper, is working with clients using all my background, both as a psychologist and from the first 4.5 years where I thought I was building a life coaching practice, to define what right for them looks like. That's that concept of fulfillment. I really ask them to look at, what are the things that are bringing you a sense of joy or fulfillment or putting you in a space where you're in the zone. Thematically, what are the themes there? What does that look like? And where are things missing? So we can start making better decisions.
Yeah.
And the third piece, strangely, came from teaching my clients how to articulate their value so they could position themselves for work that they love doing and for promotions and negotiations and networking.
Yes.
And what I found is when I would teach my clients to define what they love doing and excel at, and also to identify where they wanted that skill set to be leveraged and applied, suddenly with that clarity of this is my worth, this is my value, became so much easier to ask for the work you want, to decline the work that isn't right for you, to be able to justify that with minimal guilt.
Yes.
And then the last thing is, I don't know about you, but I can say this, I'm a recovered perfectionist. And most of my clients are excellence driven. That's the word I use. Some are perfectionist.
Yes.
We spend a lot of time teaching them how to distinguish when they need to operate exceptionally well versus solidly.
Yes.
Versus well enough. All of those things are above their average.
Yes.
And when we can do that, things go better. So my finance exec, for example, we realized that she was trying to operate exceptionally in all spaces, which, first of all, the work requirements were unreasonable.
Right.
Second of all, if she applied that standard, it was untenable.
Yes.
So I looked at her and we found pragmatically just systems to manage her email. And there are so many emails, she just doesn't even look at anymore. And how to loop in her assistant to do that. I've taught her how to let go of certain things. And she just had a review recently and she was sure her manager was going to point out that she was behind on certain things.
Yeah.
And the manager's like, you're doing just great.
Right.
We live with all this fear that we need to hold up to these incredible standards. But a lot of my women, when they start burning out, the first thing I teach them is operate at 80%. Your 80% is most other people's 100.
Yeah.
Operate at 80%. And the biggest hurdle there is getting them to do it without guilt.
Yeah. There's something that you said a few moments ago about getting them to see their worth. Right. And so the way that I kind of help people to define perfectionism or overfunctioning or people pleasing or, being the good girl is that it's an addiction, like a drug addict or an alcoholic, right? Where we started as little girls, right? That became our winning strategy, our winning formula for, getting our value and getting our worthiness. And we don't recognize it anymore. So we keep operating in this addictive pattern of believing very subconsciously, my value, my worthiness comes from what my colleagues think, what my supervisor thinks, what results I produce. And so it's so, right, that's so important for them to get their worth from within, because otherwise, oh my God, 80%, I can't do anything up to 80%, right? What if they, the proverbial they, think I'm not good enough?
Right? No, I definitely see that. I talk about the Wonder Woman effect, where women think they need to be everything to everybody at all times. And we're taught that, right? For a number, I mean, it depends where it comes from. My personal story is simple. I was born in a household that for a variety of reasons, I was the golden child. And I felt the need to be hyper responsible to kind of offset the chaos in my family.
Yeah.
I also happened to have ADD and I didn't even know I had ADD. So in order to even get halfway decent grades, I had to study 10 times as hard as most other people. And that's for mediocre grades. Thank goodness my parents were the kind of people who recognized that I was doing my best, so didn't expect A's out of me. And like these B minuses were just fine.
Yeah.
Somehow I got into Duke with that.
Wow.
But what I did learn from all of that is if you show up, if you're helpful, if you do all the things, if you make sure that the table is set so that when mommy comes back from work, like she's super stressed, the stress doesn't bleed out on everybody.
Yep.
Like if you just work hard enough,
yes,
things will be okay. And here's the thing, my mom and my dad were great. So my mom would introduce me. She's like, this is my number 3. I was the youngest. This is my number 3. She's wonderful. She never gives us a reason to worry.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So the compliment is what drove the perfectionism. It's not because I had parents who were like, you're not good enough, you're not good enough, you're not good enough. And I had to strive for perfection for that. It's because I was praised for always showing up.
Yeah.
And we all have our version of what happens, that showing up is either what keeps us safe or what gets us praised.
Yeah.
And we don't realize that the more effective, the further we go in life, we actually don't need to show up quite as much to have that same impact. We just don't recognize that growth.
Yeah, it's true. Yep.
And it's really hard. I mean, I have another client. She is not in finance. This one's in the agricultural business. And I described her the other day. I said, so you're like the junk drawer of your company. She goes, what do you mean? I said, you're like a junk drawer. Think about a junk drawer. A junk drawer is a container for very, very important items, right? They're so important that we can't find a place for them anywhere else. So we put them in the junk drawer. It's your rubber bands, it's the notepads, it's the 50 pens that you're looking for. For me, it's all like my charging blocks, like the batteries. My junk drawer is so important.
Yes.
But a junk drawer is a drawer that everybody underestimates. Right? Nobody realizes the value. I'm thinking about it. I know how important all these things are. I use them on a regular basis.
Right.
But just by the name, it's a junk drawer. I'm like, you are so effective at what you do that people just toss all the things to you. Right.
Yeah.
All these tasks that don't actually fall under your purview.
Right.
Of like for your job.
Yeah.
Don't have to do with what you need to do on a daily basis to actually be successful in this current role.
Yep.
But either nobody else in your place of employment can do them, or nobody else wants to do them. And because you're really good at everything, you take it all. I mean, you're a junk drawer. Is that actually the brand you want?
Ooh, yeah.
Because fulfilling that function means you're going to fail in your primary role.
Wow.
Or you're going to be successful in both roles, but you're going to burn yourself out and you're going to be miserable.
Yes. So boundaries, saying no, really getting clarity about what she really wants to do and who she really wants to be within her company. Yeah.
And catching that. I think that's, what you were speaking to when we started, is that we're an autopilot.
Yes.
We're sleepwalking.
Yeah.
So she probably started doing this initially because, like all leaders, she started as an individual contributor. So as an individual contributor, you just do the work that's given to you. She knows how to operate at that level. And then she was doing it because it was helpful and nice. And then she was doing it because it was necessary. And it's going to be necessary as long as her company doesn't hire new people to do the work. And they don't need to hire people to do the work because she'll do it all for a single salary, a single set of benefits. She won't even complain doing it.
Wow. And she was blind to the fact that she was perpetuating this, right? And that's really the power when you're sleepwalking and you don't see how you are contributing to creating the life that you're operating in. And that's a real game changer. Yeah, that's amazing. I think we could just talk for hours. We've got a lot of similarities in the
Love
work
it.
that we do. And by the way, I decided I wanted to be a psychotherapist at age 13 too. So that's very interesting. And then left my private practice very similarly to you. So it's
I'm
funny.
sure it's the same skill set that both you and I love applying. We just want to
Yep.
apply it in a different
In a,
context.
in a in a in a different way. Yeah, absolutely. So people want to find more about you and how to work with you. Where can they find you?
Sure. So let's see. The website is Noteworthy Inc. INC for the inc.co. That's a great place. LinkedIn is always fantastic too. And then, as I said, I will share with you a link to that Art of Nothing process.
Perfect.
And for anybody listening, it is literally, I said I had ADD. It is a process I used as a woman who has a monkey brain that will not shut up. Felt a lot of pressure to use any minute her children were sleeping to get something done.
Oh boy,
The
yeah.
process I used to go from painfully taking a 5-minute break every day around lunchtime to easily now creating multiple micro breaks throughout my day. And then on weekends or when I have time, literally I can sit and stare into space. And that time is so important when I teach my clients to do that. So
Yes.
important to be able to assess how we're doing, assess our stress levels, assess what we need, start thinking about those deeper questions so that nobody ends up at that place where, I don't know if you were there, but certainly I was there. My client I mentioned is where you're panicking because the the disconnect between how you're operating and who you are is so big
Yes.
that it is untenable.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. Wow. Thank you so much for today. I think this was a very, very powerful conversation. So thanks for being on the show.
It is my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on. I cannot wait to listen to this in addition to all the other episodes I've been listening to. So thank you.
Yeah. You're so welcome.